For sure.
your comp plan is based on you hitting this number. Okay, great. Has anybody ever hit that number? Yeah, one time 5 years ago we had this huge, this huge order and this giant project, and it was like, you know, it's artificially inflated all our numbers. Okay, so when was the last time you did that? Like, there's nothing that happened in between then and now. No. All right, so realistically, this isn't going to happen again.
Yo, welcome back to Corporate Counterculture. Today, we got a good topic. It's getting towards the end of the year. We're in Q4, so everybody wants to know how much they are going to make, or they're trying to hit their quota so they can get paid. But we've never talked about pay, just in general. So that's what we're going to talk about today: sales, people, commission, all that stuff, salary, payouts, how that works. So, as you know, I'm Brian, and we have the other Brian here too.
Yes,
And
sir.
we're just gonna hop into it, man. We're gonna talk about sales pay for sales reps in corporate America. What do you think about that?
I mean, I feel like I've seen two different extremes. We had a quick little chat before we started the episode, and I came from a world where it was very, very salary heavy and not at all commission heavy. And then as we kind of modernized, as things kind of changed over the course of 8 years, I started kind of seeing more and more commission opportunity. But
Yeah,
even still, I touched on the fact that where I came from a place that the industry as a whole was kind of stale and small, and being able to move into an industry that is actually still in like its infancy and still has a lot of room to grow and things like that. That's where you kind of truly see where stuff can take off, right? And so I am not a risk taker in the sense where like, hey man, I'm happy with commission only. I'll bust my ass. I'll only get paid out on what I sell. That's not me. Like I wouldn't even take a job like that because I have friends that have done it, and I know kind of the internal drive, not just the drive, but like the hand to mouth type of environment that it is. Like man, it's really slow, and hey, nobody's buying. Like this month, I could actually not make any money. And then like the feast or famine aspect of like, okay, now this month I had three killer deals, and I've never been so busy and blah blah blah. So if it's me personally, I'm gonna take a salary first, guaranteed salary, and then we can talk about the negotiated commission on what I sell. And even still, kind of piggybacking off of last week's conversation about different quotas and anxieties around like just hitting your numbers and stuff like that. Like let's just understand what is realistic for my role, right? And be very, very particular, very specific about that too as a whole. I mean, I'm not the type of person to jump around, but all this comes into my mind of like, what am I going to be judged on? How am I going to be paid out? What's this going to look like for me, for my family? And what's this going to look like for my mental health? All those things come into more than just dollars.
yeah, yeah, man, dude. I am one of those people that sadly the sales, the idea of more money and the game of it. I think that is what's so attractive to me about the sales role. Outside of we talked about flexibility and all that. Man, I've granted I'm 41, so I've had the cliche sayings up and down in every interview, every sales job I've had. I don't like, dude, I can remember them like the back of my hand. It's almost like a southern pastor preaching to you. I've heard it all from my managers. There's no greater mission than commission. Are you down with OTE? Yeah, you know me.
What? That sounds terrible.
Bro, it's terrible, but that's the background I come from,
That's
where
so funny.
you eat what you kill. But yeah, it's I think the idea of being able to put your talent to use to see if you can actually make more money is alluring. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not an all commission type of guy. There's been jobs where they looked very attractive and it was only commission, but when you look deep down into the structure of it, the job required way more than selling. And so you have to really, in any sales role, really, you have to look under the hood and really see what's going on, because once you get into the details of what it is, what's required for you to make pay, not just like, oh, I can sell. It's like, no, what's required for you to get paid? I find if I have to just prospect the business and close the business, great. But what are you doing in between that? How many meetings are you having? Who do you have to work with internally at the organization? On top of doing all the sales things, then you start getting into the look and say, actually, this is a terrible deal. It
Yeah.
requires way too much. Some jobs are easy flips and you can do that, but I think now, even with all the technology added, sales jobs have become harder because now it's easier to prospect because of all the technology added. But internally now, because of technology, there's so many different layers that and red tape that you have to go through that you if you're in a sales job now, I think you strongly have to consider the salary. I wouldn't necessarily say can you figure out if you could live off that salary, but if you can find one that you can say, "Hey, I can live off this salary," absolutely I would find that more attractive than the scale of on-target earnings. Cuz on-target earnings are great, but when you really get into the sales cycle, how long it takes, what the company isn't telling you about why they can't do some of the things that they need to do to win some of their customers or some of their prospects, you gotta really dive deep on those things before you make those type of decisions.
I think that's a good point to make because it could be a good cushion for you, like the way that I said in the beginning, right? Like I'm very salary heavy in terms of like my consideration, but at the same time, like you're being chosen to fulfill a role and actually, sell stuff, right? So if you're just living off of the salary and you're not actually selling and you're not closing and you're not being able to prove what you're doing and the prospecting and everything else that you're contributing to the overall, growth of the organization, then know that, you're on the chopping block. Like, great,
Yeah.
we paid you this amount of salary over the past 3 years. You've done nothing, so we might as well just take that and gamble on somebody else. Now, when it comes to like the on target earnings, that's a big thing in terms of like you're saying, right? Like, what does that role actually entail? What are you doing aside from your actual prospecting and selling? Are you also doing account management? Are you also helping with parts and simple, kind of aftermarket stuff? Are you also doing service? So I got offered a few years back, this is probably like 3 years back. I was really frustrated with my last job and I went to like 3 interviews with this one company and it was what I wanted in many ways, better pay than what I was getting at the time, less air travel and overnights than I was getting at the time. But then like as I got into it, they were like, "Oh yeah, you can make." It was gonna be like, I don't know, it was gonna be like almost 2x what I was earning on a yearly basis. He's like, "Oh yeah, you can make this and you can make that and blah blah blah." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Take me through a week." Like let's just. It was like my third interview. Like,
Yeah.
let's go through a full on week. And he's like, "Yeah, so you might wake up and drive 2 hours and knock on a whole bunch of doors and then come back home and have to do it again the next day. And then on the third day, you might, have some service appointments and you got to have your tool bag with you and you're servicing the equipment and you're selling all these parts." And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was like, you're telling me I'm not selling new equipment. You're telling me that I'm a service guy that can sell equipment on the side, but this is my territory for me to service all the equipment through my territory.
Oh,
And I was just like, whoa, dude. And then right there, they could tell my body language kind of shifted a little bit. And I was like, okay, let's see. Right. And then like the next day I get the offer and it was straight up like, I think it was 25/75. 25% of my on target earnings was salary. It was like less than 50K. And then 75% was going to be actual, commissions based on all the parts, not the new equipment, all the parts that I sell and all the service that I provide and all this other stuff. And so I was just like, they really get you with these big numbers and things like that. You got to take a deep, deep dive into what that is. And then also too, couple other interesting things too that might exist depending on, and this is actually another quick little story too, is like depending on what the organization is like. So I come from a place where the person that controlled comp was actually the president of the company. It's a very, very small organization, but he knew exactly what you're making in terms of salary. He knew what your commission rate was, which was not equal across the board. Everybody had their own commission rate. And it wasn't a negotiated rate, it was a dictated rate. But the interesting about that is that it changed from year to year. It was, hey, I think you guys could sell some more. I'm going to incentivize you guys. And it was like this like point zero something increase. You know what I mean? The tiniest bit of an increase. And then after I left, I ended up talking to somebody and I was like, hey man, this last year I just got up to 1%. And he's like, I've been on 3 since I started. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I've been on 3% since I started. I was like, oh, that's would have been good to know 3 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they play a lot of games with that. And then on top of that too is like, okay, every year, another game that this guy would play is every year that your salary got bumped up, like your cost of living increase, whatever that might be, 2 to 3, 4% maybe. That's how much he would take off your on target earnings. If I had a round numbers, if I had 100K on target earnings, my salary went from 75 to 80. Well, now my commission that I could earn went from 25 to 20 because he reduced my rate, kept my quota the same. You know what I mean? So he played
Yeah.
games that way. And I'm like, there is nowhere for me to go. There's
Yeah.
nowhere for me to go. Because if I hit numbers at the end of the year, I'm still going to be in the same exact place, right? Like, and that it's you gotta have a lot of experience and know the right questions to ask and things like that, because you wouldn't know that going into that. You know what I mean? I did have somebody reach out to me when the position was open. I had somebody reach out to me. He's like, hey, I'm actually going for the position that you left behind. Would
Yeah.
you mind kind of having a one-on-one? And I talked to this guy for like an hour. And I was like, hey, these are the games he plays. This is what he does. This is the pay structure. This is what they do. This is what you can expect. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. And I was like, just giving you the heads up.
Give
The
you the
same
heads
heads up that
up.
I wish other people would give me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is definitely a lot of games that are played out there. Now,
For
I've never been in
sure.
the leadership position, but it takes value to hear other people's experiences. You know what I mean? It's
No.
tough.
Dude, there's so many questions you have to ask as a salesperson. Oddly enough, though, is they're looking for a salesperson, but they don't really want you to ask them questions, which is kind of counterintuitive. You're bringing in somebody who's supposed to be good at questioning, who's supposed to be curious, who is supposed to seek out information. That's how you become a good salesperson. That's how you become a trusted advisor in some of these organizations that you're selling into. But when you ask, hey, is this commission capped or uncapped? What happens if I overperform? They start getting, oh well, let's not worry about all those things. What if I hit 120% to plan? Do I just okay, I make my same commission at 120 that I do if I make 200% to plan? Is there an increase in my salary the next year by a certain percentage if I hit 200%? All these type of things they never really consider. They just know, hey, your job's flexible. You're going to be able to have an opportunity to make good money, and that's kind of where they leave it. But nah, man, there's a lot of nuance to that whole sales role, and the pay thing is always tricky. Man, I remember I had a friend when I was at UPS. He was interviewing with DoorDash. Kind of same situation you said, where he thought the money was great. He was interested in going over, and they told him, hey, just so you know, as a salesperson, you have to deliver. I don't know if it was for a couple of days or a week out of the year,
Like
out of the month.
actual
It was monthly,
DoorDash delivery.
yeah. Yeah, dude. And I said, bro, that just sounds problematic, bro. That sounds like I'm sure they're saving a ton of money, but they sold it as that way, our salespeople can have firsthand of how our product works. It doesn't take a monthly to understand that. You could do that once a month or every 6 months, or you could just have feedback from marketing and have all that handled. But nah, dude, they sold it to him as if, yeah, you're gonna get a great value from this. And I feel like that's a lot of there's a lot of sales organizations that try to sneak some type of service or extra effort in on the sales side. And you have to really watch out for that, because sometimes they don't even mention it. You get to a spot and then you find out. And
Yes.
that gets tricky too. Dude, I got to UPS. Mind you, they tell us to wear a suit every day. All right. So I'm in BD. I'm excited because the first thing I assumed was we drive trucks. I get in the interview, they tell me we don't drive trucks. I'm in BD. I'm excited. We wear suits every day. I feel all professional. The holidays come, and then they're sending out emails like, "Hey, everybody, report to the building. Get your browns, which is your uniform, and prepare to help deliver during the holidays." And I said, "What?" Now, mind you, this is normal for them, but nobody really told me that. They,
Wow.
the salespeople at UPS will help deliver during the holidays, and this was like my first 9 to 5 official 9 to 5, and it wasn't. I had good clients, so I don't think they bothered me that much, and it wasn't that bad. But they would send people to different states. You could be in California, they might send you to Minnesota. They may send you to Chicago or Dallas, and it was normal. And I said, why don't you just hire more people in Dallas or this or that? And it was just like, no, this is the UPS Ready team. This is how things are done. And dude, I thought that was the oddest thing in the
That
world.
is so weird.
Yeah, and nobody was off limits, whether it was women, if you had kids, it
What?
did not matter, bro. And oddly enough, dude, it wasn't that bad once I got used to it, which
Right.
is weird to say. But
Yes.
it was terrible because and I'm surprised that more didn't come out about that, but always my issue was you're not doing a training, so you want me to every year just get myself into the building, and I'm one of those people like I'm not doing that because I could roll my ankle, throw my back out. Then what happens if I get injured? Now I don't get my commission after however long because I'm on disability. So I always kind of pushed back, but it was crazy, bro. And that wasn't the only organization like that, but UPS was known for that, dude. They would just work you in many different areas. And granted, a lot of people came from operations, so
Mm.
that old UPS regime and new UPS would bump heads a lot. But yeah, bro, that was terrible. Because I would tell my mom I'm not driving a truck, then she would call during the holidays and she would hear me in a truck. I thought you didn't drive a truck.
That sounds so weird, dude. That
Bro, it
sounds
was weird.
so weird.
It was super weird. And so I knew, which is crazy. I knew I was gonna end up getting out of there, but that was my first 9 to 5 and it was taking care of my family, and I learned a lot there, but that's just not how sales should go, man.
Nah,
And I think
yeah.
a lot of people find people who are in positions like I was where you're kind of green and you're hungry, and then dude, that list of roles and responsibilities can get super long once they find somebody like that.
That's what I think, and I think that like as my time in sales grows, I learn to be way more what's the word? Like inquisitive about the role, right? Like if I'm interviewing for something new, like before I started this position that we're both in right now, I straight up would go through an interview and would sit there and ask all the questions. What does the day look like? What does my pay look like? What's the commission? What happens if I do this? What happens if I don't do that? What happens if margins are bad? What happens if margins are good? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you got to try to work out all these scenarios. Like, okay, I know I have an interview in a week and a half. What questions are rolling through my mind? Let me put that in a notes document on my phone and have that ready to go. Are there end of year bonuses? What are those based off of? Like, are there performance bonuses? Are there, you know what I mean? Like all these things, because um, I don't want to be met with a situation where now, like they're really kind of laying in on you and they're forcing you to do something that number one, you're uncomfortable with, number two, you weren't aware of, number three was not part of the role description anywhere. And then I also started to learn that, there's a lot of like, essentially like not just fake promises, but you know, empty targets and things like that. Like, okay,
For sure.
your comp plan is based on you hitting this number. Okay, great. Has anybody ever hit that number? Yeah, one time 5 years ago we had this huge order and this giant project, and it was like, you know, it's artificially inflated all our numbers. Okay, so when was the last time you did that? Like, there's nothing that happened in between then and now. No. All right, so realistically, this isn't going to happen again, unless you get this monster whale of a deal and blah blah blah. And so there's a lot of that too. It is weird, and also too, you also want to like always try to ask people that are in similar roles. Like I ask for their information, or I might look them up on LinkedIn or something like that.
Yeah.
If you're interviewing for a job, who left, right? So try to figure out who left that company, like that guy did, where he straight up reached out to me and was like, hey, tell me like, you got nothing left to lose. Tell me all the inside secrets. Tell me everything I need to know. And that is another smart thing too. I would probably do the same exact thing. I have asked to speak to certain people and been like, okay, where's the guy that had my territory before? Oh, he went
Yeah,
to a different company. Okay, well, who's the next closest guy? Who trained him? Right. And like, I want to talk to somebody that's not the manager that needs to fill the role. I want to talk to somebody that's like in the role and
for
deals with the
sure.
with the bullshit in and out, and like day in and day out. So all that is really, really important for you to just like, sometimes you get so overly emotional and excited about a job and excited for the opportunity that you forget to be like critical. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta work through the worst case scenarios. But I
Yeah.
mean, again, we're talking about shifting roles. What kind of keeps you excited about your, like, if you're in a place, what's some of the stuff that you might have had in the past, especially now that like we're in Q4 and you're planning for closing out the year, holiday stuff? Like, did have you been in any places that have done like end of year bonuses or parties for, you and your wife and things like that, that kind of like keeps you excited about what the company culture does or is?
So oddly enough, I circle back to UPS. UPS. So on top of commission, if you were in a sales role, if you were in BD, was I guess management, which means you were a part of the corporate structure versus operations. They had at the time it was MIP, so Management Incentive Program, and so you would also get a bonus based on the company's performance.
Mm.
So luckily, I talked to somebody who was like, hey, young boy, I know this sucks, right? Look at it this way. This is 4 to 6 weeks of you helping out is towards your MIP. So if you had a rough year, or if you had a great year, you get commission. But if we can take care of home these last 6 weeks, make sure we really nail it. This will help your bonus, your MIP. And so I didn't feel so bad about it. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I think that's a very important part where companies should look at, because at times sales really just does have to put down the sales hat and go do other things. So if there's ways that they use you in different areas, then you for sure should be able to get some type of bonus. I think, especially if you're driving company revenue that doesn't just mean you, or company performance that isn't just necessarily attached to you and your territory. I remember when I was working for a software division or company under a firm does refreshes. They don't necessarily do, I don't know if I can't remember exactly, but they would refresh your RSUs, which is your restricted stock units or something like that. And they had no cliff, so your stock units would come in monthly. So it just depends, man. I think the best structures though I've seen have been in the tech industry. Unfortunately, a lot of the other industries are very old mindset when it comes to sales and sales incentives and planning. I don't mind President's Club. I don't mind President's Club. I don't mind the end of year dinners and stuff like that. But it's always weird to me when you do those things and then they lay people off. So I'm like, yo, you could have just given me another $1,000. I didn't have to come to the dinner, because even when you're at these dinners, you're still on. You're not really off
Yes,
because,
yes. Your boss is still there. Like, yeah.
well, here's the thing. Let's say you have a great relationship with your boss. Let's say you go out and get plastered with your boss. You
Mm-hmm.
still have 10 other people around you that you don't engage with on the day to day or have that level of relationship with. So I've always been standoffish when it comes to big company dinners or the sales president's club thing. I love them, but I've always been cautious to kind of lean into my group a little bit more versus other salespeople in other territories, because you just don't know, man. Y'all don't tell jokes the same. Y'all don't, if you drink, they may say it's too messy. Even if
Yeah,
it's a small company, like something
yeah.
always is too far when it's not just your immediate circle. So I like doing the trips as a team. The team trips are great. You know everybody on your team. The
Yep,
small team of
yep,
5, 10, 20, whatever.
yep.
But once you get into the whole org and president's clubs, things get a little tricky for me. Or the dinner with now you got the marketing person, the head of ops, and you don't know what they're doing, and you're standing there like, who's going to buy a drink first, or who's going to go for the.
Right, right.
All that is tough, dude. But that's why I always lean on pay. I always lean on pay when it comes to sales jobs. What's your let's go back since we don't work these jobs anymore. My first, I would say, good sales job. It was like I think this is 2014. I think the base pay was somewhere in the high, I'm gonna say it, high 40s to low 50s. So like
Okay.
48 to 50 something thousand,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And then on target earnings was like 75.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. 75. So it was anywhere but so my base was yeah, like 40 something, 50
Mm-hmm.
something grand. And it was in the office every day and then
Yeah.
in the field every day. And then you come back and report back and do your admin and then you go home.
Yeah. I
2014 Los Angeles, California to be exact.
That's surprising for LA. I'm not gonna lie.
Bro.
I'm
I
not gonna lie.
and
I feel like that's not enough.
I don't know, but 2014, I don't
It wasn't
know.
as bad as it
Yeah,
is
that
now.
was still probably low though, but it wasn't tech or anything.
Right. See, like that's the weird thing, right? Like it really depends on the industry that you're in.
Yeah.
And then also it depends on like what information is actually shared. So like if I were to say, because I went through this exercise when I was leaving my last place, where I was just like,
Hmm.
I got nothing to lose. I've already handed in my resignation. Like I've already got this other job lined up. And so I might as well just come out and say it and see what the feedback is. You know what I mean? Like let me just understand where the industry as a whole is currently standing. Was I leaving money on the table? Was I in a good spot? You know what I mean? Like where is my company going? Where are other similar companies going? That type of thing.
Yeah.
And I still have some of those conversations on some level with some of my old contacts and stuff like that. Uh, but like if I were to go back, my 2015 was when I got hired straight out of school. You know, got my bachelor's or whatever, and I was making about the same. I was making just under 60. This is Massachusetts. I make just under 60K. And it took a while for me to get the commission side of things going. Like the training program and some of the other projects I was working on, I wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily selling. And then the interesting thing about this company that I liked a lot actually was, you know how somebody's on vacation, account needs to be handled, somebody needs a quote right away, there's an issue going on. Somebody still needs to take care of that, but you're not necessarily like required to obviously work on your vacation if you're out of touch, if you're out of the country, whatever. And so what they used to do is they used to do like a team commission, like a team bonus. And so it'd be like, hey, you get a larger rate for your stuff. You get a very small rate for everybody else's stuff. And so
Yeah.
like even if you didn't sell anything, you still get like a baby commission check. Like if this month wasn't your month, you still get a baby commission check. If you help somebody out while they were on vacation or whatever, or they were swamped and they just needed, you know, to hand something off to you, like you still get a piece of that. And so that kind of helped that whole thing where it's like, let's just break down the obstacle of like, oh, I'm not going to get paid for it. So let me not even touch it. Right. And like
Yeah.
every man on their own. So that is an interesting concept. And I think that it worked actually decently well, to be completely honest. Now, that was also a very, very much like I was saying at the beginning, salary was like 90%. And then there was like a 10% commission on top of like, you know what I mean? Like what I made in a year, in my best year, was nothing compared to like what I felt like was out there. You know what I mean? And so the little things though that kind of like pushed me in that direction was just like honestly seeing like different industries, like learning more about the tech space, learning more about like these other positions that their posted jobs and things like that were. I was like, man, these guys are making some freaking serious money compared to what I'm making. Right. And
Yeah.
so, but it took me forever to get there and then feel comfortable in leaving, entertaining certain positions and learning more and more about it. But it's hard to say because there is extra stuff in there too that like is hard to kind of quantify.
Hmm.
Like for example, like an end of year bonus, right? Like we never did any like group things. There was a Christmas lunch for all the people that were at the facility. If you weren't there, if you were remote or whatever, they would kind of invite you in and be like, yeah, if you want to fly in for lunch. But then it's like, okay, I'm not going to spend 2 nights on the road and a plane ticket when what I really need is a new computer. You know what I mean? And then on top of that too, they would do a end of year bonus based on company's overall net profit. So if the net profit for the year was X, your commit or your end of year bonus would be X percentage. You know what I mean? And so like everybody got a bonus as a percentage of their salary for that year. You know what I mean? And so that worked out really well because it's kind of like, hey, if everybody does their job really well, if manufacturing does well, if shipping does well, if like everything, all engineering and sales and everybody's kind of working together and getting stuff out on time and profits are good and everything else, then we all get to share in that. I
Mm-hmm.
liked that aspect of it, but like that's it. You know what I mean? Like there
Yeah,
was not much else.
interesting. All right, so we both kind of made the same amount. That's crazy. Even in 10 years of difference, like that starting salary is kind of static, which is crazy because now people who are coming into sales, I see them still base is like 75. I thought it would be like, I don't know, and maybe I'm tripping. Maybe it's where it's supposed to be, I guess, in 10
Bro,
years.
and again, it really depends on your industry
Yeah.
because for me, like tech is a whole different animal. And
But
you
I'm
hear
seeing it in
stories of
tech too now, where some people are starting at 75, unless you're mid level or you're at somewhere in the Fang group. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But I'm seeing some of these people. I don't know if they're right sizing, pun intended, of the industry, but yeah.
Yeah, bro. Because like, so for me, right? So when I left my last place, I was like, yo, this was what I was getting paid. I was getting paid, I think it was like 80K salary. So it took me 9 years to go from 60 to 80. Plus, I had to add in a second degree in there. So I got my MBA.
Sheesh.
So 9 years to go up, what was that, 30%
Yeah.
on my base, and then work up to like a slightly better commission rate. And then I, again, I had nothing to lose. And I
Mm-hmm.
straight up asked like multiple other people, I was like, what are you making? Like, I need to understand, like, is this good? Is this bad? You know what I mean? Was I leaving money on the table? And basically, there was a lot of like similarities in the industry, but everybody kept it under wraps. You know what I mean? And that's the problem. The industry that I was in as a whole was stuck. You know what I mean? It's a lot of people that were aging out. So a lot of people that were 30, 40 years in the same place, 40 years doing the same exact thing. But then you have this giant gap. And now you got these 21s, 22s, 23s coming in, and there's no knowledge there. So they're getting paid less. And then you have all these people that were just getting these incremental, increases like on their salary. And so there's like this weird, unknowing kind of where you stand. And there was no like true market rate for it because the market as a whole was hurting. And so that's my biggest thing is like I wanted some clarification that the decision I made was the right one. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, 100%.
Man. So look, before we close out, I want to do some rapid fire questions. All right. So, so my starting salary, UPS is, I guess, transportation or carrier transportation industry. So 50K. Yours, what industry was it?
Manufacturing.
So manufacturing 60K. All right, what's the highest offer you've seen communicated to you from the recruiter or the hiring manager, whether you took it or not?
In that same industry,
Any industry.
any industry, base or OTE?
OTE.
OTE, probably 180.
180.
Yeah.
So I've seen it was tech. It was tech and yeah, it was tech and manufacturing blend. No, it was just tech actually. So tech was the highest one. It was 400 OTE, 50-50 split. Travel 75% though. Travel 75%. Um and the worst like expense account you can think of. Like the
McDonald's every
economy
day.
flights, it were their flights if it was layovers, the way they did things, and I didn't, because I was ready to take this role, but the way they did things, luckily I talked to somebody, like you said, they're sending you across the country. It's the economy flight, it's Frontier, and you're going two or three planes, like no matter what you could do to get around it. This is just how they did it. So they paid you well, but they made all that money back. I think the daily expense account was $50, which I don't even know how you use in all day. Yeah,
What?
this is serious. Yeah. So that was why I didn't take that gig. At UPS, our expense account was, now we didn't have to travel, so I can't really say it was trash. But even if you had, but you had to, you almost had to write a dissertation just to be able to take customers donuts, bro. And they could be spending $20,000 a month with you. You can't even spend $100 on donuts. Again, I get it. People are fiscal. Most modest expense accounts, definitely tech companies. Most loose expense accounts, definitely freight brokers. Like freight brokerage and freight companies, bro.
Mm,
You sell and you sell and it's balls to the wall boiler room style, the way you're calling and dialing, then you're traveling, a lot of travel, but they let you travel and sleep comfortably. I'd say
okay.
that. I'll say that. Yeah, because
Okay.
you're entertaining clients and stuff too, and they're large RFPs. So I'll give freight, specifically freight, not
Yeah.
small package, not UPS, FedEx, but if you're in the XPO, RXO, those type of levels, spend they treat you, they at least allow you to travel well.
Yeah. No, that's important because like there's got to be some benefit to it. You know what I mean? And like that, I mean, even something as good as, hey, your points are your points to use on your personal time, like your
Hmm.
airline points, your hotel points, your all that stuff is just to be able to use that on your own. It's like, okay, at least I get some benefit from being away from home or whatever. So like that is valuable too.
Yeah. And then my last question: let's say you're killing it in your territory, you're killing it. You know next year's gonna be a good year too.
Yep.
A lot of companies like to offer promotions when they know that commission is going to be banging. Do you take the promotion or do you stay in your territory and make bank?
It depends on stress level more than anything, more than dollars, I would say.
Okay.
So for me, um,
No
I'm
stress stay in the place you already got because you already dialed in. So let's say it's
yes,
no stress.
and that's exactly it, right? So like there for me it's like, okay, what's the trade-off? There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. And so like if I'm going to give up cash, then I want to get some sort of comfort or guarantee in some other space. Whether that's stress, whether that's less travel, whether that's something else. Like if I'm giving up cash, we need to sweeten the pot on the other side and balance it out. So short answer, probably not,
Okay.
because there is still an adjustment period. There is still now you're responsible for multiple people. Now somebody else's actions can negatively impact you, and now like your neck is on the line for people doing things that are not what you're necessarily telling them to do or aware that they're doing. And so there's an added layer of complexity there. I
Now
don't. It's
let's
not
say
necessarily
you
what I would
are
jump on.
let's say you're on a career track and this is where you can see that position taking you to leadership eventually. Do you take it or do you? But you're gonna make less as at the next level than you were if you stayed, and you know it's gonna be. It's not even close. Let's say 50K swing.
Okay. So if it's a 50K swing,
Oh, let's say it's 20. What's your number where you stay?
I think I think I think if it's a 50K swing, it might be enough to keep me where I'm at. If it's 20, then I think that you can make that up elsewhere, right? With other parts of your life to kind of balance that out. It's hard to say though. It's hard to say because again, it's what is important to me in that moment. Am I in a position where I've set myself up, I've got what I needed to get in terms of like investments and stuff set up, then maybe cash doesn't matter as much to me, right? But if I'm in a period where like I want to focus on making as much money as possible as quickly as possible for the next 3 to 5 years, and then I take my foot off the gas, now that's a different story. You know what I mean? So it really is a very, very scenario specific type of question. But I do also try to be very realistic with like the extent of my experience and my knowledge. And so like even more recently, we had a couple of different positions open up and somebody asked me, hey, are you thinking about throwing your hat in the ring? And I was like, no, because of X, Y, and Z. And they're like, okay, that's a fair assessment. It's not time yet. And I was like, exactly. I knew that it wasn't time. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I don't like, so if you were to ask me this at my last company where I had 10 years of experience and I knew it like the back of my hand, I would have taken a leadership role. Right.
Okay. Okay.
But if you're asking me as somebody that's like necessarily like still new and developing and learning the ropes, and to some extent, my focus is getting established first. So it just depends. It depends.
All right,
It's a nuanced question.
got it. Last question. What's the what's the minimum ramp up you're willing to accept of guaranteed pay? Because ramp up, some guaranteed pays a month. Sometimes it's 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, longer.
Of guaranteed pay
Yeah, because they do.
before you're on your own.
Yep. What's the minimum you'd accept right
So
now?
so assuming we're still discussing like salary base plus commission, right? Yeah, I think six at least. 12 is perfect.
That was perfect.
Yeah, 12 is perfect because again, it depends on how complex and complicated the product line is. And again, pulling from my last role, it took me a year and a half to 2 years to truly understand the differences in the product line, like from one component to the next, and understand how to discuss that. It took me like 1.5 to 2 years. Whereas this product line that we're in now and what we sell now, I think I was pretty good within the first 4 to 6 months. I was like, okay, I think I got it down. Enough to be dangerous in terms of like selling. I'm not the expert, but you're selling and you're making that initial pitch and all that other stuff. Like you have terminology, you have certain talk tracks that are like quick and off the top of the head, and you can apply it correctly. 6 months is all I really needed personally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
It has to
depends.
be at least 6 months, man. I'll tell you why. I had an experience one time at another company. I thought I could just walk in and sell because I knew everything. I knew the product. I've sold it along with other products before unintentionally. Was recruited. The pay was good, so I took it. And I think the ramp up, and this was because I was young. I didn't think it through. There was a short ramp up. I think 3 months. I get there, they don't have any talk tracks, any sales like material at all. So I say, hey, I got a couple of prospects. I want to send them some of our sales materials, sales sheets, specs. Yeah, we don't. It took me 3 months to really craft the right
Right.
sales and spec sheets because I'm also trying to prospect. And so when my ramp up ran out, I said, nah, bro, y'all got to extend this because I've spent half the time interviewing internally the right stuff and getting legal to approve what I can and can't say on certain things.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
you
And now you
got
got
to
to factor
be.
in the sales cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be, dude. I think minimum 6 months, unless it's a super dialed in company, which most of them aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they are a dialed in company, I don't think they have, very rarely have I seen where leadership is just so dialed in that you can just really take off. I've been able to do it, but that's been places where I've been an outlier just due to my experience. That normally a person can't come in and just get to work like that. I was literally just taking clients from one place and bringing them to
Yes.
another.
Yes.
I was just transferring my book of business. So you
Right.
can't you can't count that, and that's a horrible way to build a business. It's a good way to provide some cushion, but once I got done with my book of business, I realized how much everything was terrible, and it took me way longer to get more clients because they hadn't worked on actually prospecting, customer
Yes.
bases, and all that stuff. They just were looking for people to transfer their book of business. So I was bringing in business and somebody else took business out. We just equaled out. Nothing changed.
Yeah. I now that I think of it, I actually turned down a job one time that they had a 12-month ramp up. And I remember being very, very critical of this position. And I was like, well, what happens after those 12 months? And the salary wasn't attractive and the overall like outlook on the territory wasn't attractive. And I was like, great, this is a good way to get somebody in the door. But then they're
Yeah.
freaking screwed. You know what I mean? Like it takes a lot of work. And if you're in a smaller organization, you don't have that kind of support behind you, and you're really crafting and building up a territory basically from scratch, then that is very, very hard. You know what I mean? And
It's
so, like,
super hard.
even that is going to take you way longer than 12 months. That might even take you 24 to 36 months. And
Yeah.
so, I remember kind of going through that and being like, this is not smart. Like, I can't. And then on top of that, too, what am I going to do after those 12 months are over? Come back to my old job? You know what I mean? Or look for a new job. And now I got to start all over. And it's just like, it wasn't worth that one big jump in a year. It wasn't worth all the headaches and potential, downfall afterwards.
Yeah. I went through that a couple of times and people were looking for me to just bring my book of business. And I thought it was crazy that you're selling me on me being, or you're looking for some rock star salesman that can grow this territory, but you're only asking for a book of business. You weren't necessarily you weren't a sales organization yourself. You weren't developing sales. You weren't developing talent. You weren't using marketing in the right way. Y'all were just hoping that someone could give y'all business so that you can say you made the number. So I
Yeah,
saw that so
you're
many times where I'm always kind of put off by companies that that's really only their thing. If you don't have a book of business, because we're not selling, we're not looking for somebody to grow the territory. We want a transfer of revenue.
and that's literally it. Like they're buying an influx of revenue at the cost of your salary.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that's all they're
it.
gonna get. So instead of instead of spending that money in advertising, instead of spending that money in developing potentially uh, the internal people that might already have had that territory or whatever, and investing in their actual like capabilities, investing in prospecting or whatever else, they're like, oh, well, I could spend 200,000 and all this extra stuff, or I could pay somebody 170,000 and they already come with all this book of business and all these contacts and all these accounts that we're chasing anyways.
Yeah.
And so it is a funny game. I'd had that happen in my last company. A guy came over from a competitor that went under,
Mm-hmm.
and sure, he came in, he was killing it with all his old contacts. Last time I checked, again, I keep in touch with those dudes. The last time I checked, that dried up.
It
Now what?
dries up fast, bro.
Now what? You know what I mean? And so that's the difficult part. Like that might be a good way for you to like, oh man, yeah, he's really killing it. Great. But you also got to know what the long-term game is. And if you don't have good practice in terms of like we were saying, you know, prospecting, developing the sales cycle, developing new accounts, new contacts, all that stuff, then eventually the light will shine on the glaring holes that you have in your game.
Bro, I remember this company, man. I sent them through the ringer because I kind of thought they were shady. The more I got into it, and I just straight up asked them, I said, "Hey, you want me to bring over this $3 million for business? You want to pay me 200K plus on target earnings, but the 200K is like 7%, I think 6 or 7%. So I'm like, so you're paying me 7%, even though this 300K, 3 million is going to be forecasted for the next 7 years. So your revenue this year and your earnings and your investors are going to pay you this much. Like I said, like 10 million based on your forecast of having 3 million that's going to be able to increase 15% over the next
Yeah.
5 years, something. And I said, so you're going to pay me 200K. I said, why not just pay me 400? I just asked for some random
Yeah.
number. And they were just like, what? That's unacceptable. And I said, dude, you want me to literally just bring business over now? Because now my brand is on the line. This
Yeah.
company I've never worked with, I'm asking you to come over here and expect them to deliver based off of my brand of me doing a good job. Instead of leaving you alone at a company I already know is doing a good job for you and
Mm-hmm.
then letting me inspect and build business over here. You don't want me to build business. You just want me to bring business over. So
Yeah.
now you're just asking me to risk everything I built just at hopes that you get it right. And if you don't get it right, you're like, well, you know, sorry. So now I lose my brand and now I can't continue as a salesperson in this territory or this area or this industry. So I was just like, nah, bro, I can't do it.
That's I think that's a perfect example too though of like being super critical not only of the role and the opportunity but also of the actual organization as a whole.
Yeah,
That's a perfect opportunity to straight up ask like, hey, where do you guys stand in your own market? Like I
bro.
remember interviewing for a position where I had nothing to do with that industry. I knew nothing about it, and I was like, hey, where I'm at currently, we are the industry leader. We
We're the
are the
leader.
thought
Yeah,
leaders. We have a very strong reputation. We've been in the industry for over half a century. People know us, and I can walk into any place and say, this is why we're the best. Where do you guys stand? And the guy was like, yeah, we're kind of middle of the road. And I was like, he's like, we're not the cheapest, we're not the worst, but we're also not the best. There are other options out there that are technically better than ours. And I was
bro.
like, I don't know if I like that. You know what I mean? Because that makes my life way harder as a salesperson,
Way harder.
way harder. And so, even, you know, in the position that you and I are in now, like I always say the same thing is like, if you don't believe in what you're selling, you will not be able to convey that in such a way that the customer is going to believe in what they're buying. And so for me, above anything else, I have to believe in it. And if I'm already going into an interview and potentially stepping into a role where I'm already skeptical of the product, that is a losing strategy.
You'll be
Losing
4 months
strategy.
in and hating it.
Yes, exactly. Losing strategy across the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
man. I
right.
mean,
So
tons of different ways to structure all this stuff. Tons of things to think about.
tons of things. Close us out with, when it comes to pay, give me two things that somebody interviewing for a position or looking for a position should be looking for, and then maybe two things that they should ask. Just like they got to straight up ask.
Okay, so I'll start with things they should ask. What does day in the life look like
Mm-hmm.
after you've already ramped up? What is
Got it.
expected? Okay. Um, what does the ramp up period in terms of target of knowledge and potentially some KPIs look like after 3, 6, 12 months? So have a clear picture if you're trying to move into a sales role at a new organization or even within your own organization. If you're trying
Yeah.
to transition to this new role, have a clear picture of KPIs, what is expected of you, and so forth, because a lot gets lost in the urgency of selling.
True.
What I look for in terms of like in my day to day, I personally focus more so on salary because it's more stable. I'm not a
Yeah.
big risk taker,
Okay.
and so I focus on salary. I also focus on uncapped commissions and overall growth potential. Understanding where the company was, where the company is, what the overall industry and market is going to look like over the next 5 to 10 years. Because I'm also not a job hopper, and so I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. If I'm making the jump, I'm going to be here for a while. And in terms of, some of the other stuff that might be involved in a new position, definitely be comfortable and invested and believe in what you're selling. Because if you're not, that's going to convey. And the best thing that you can do is sell with excitement and talk about your own product with excitement. And then that will be a natural kind of way for you to get your prospect or whatever excited about what you're trying to get in their hands for them.
Got it. I
That
like
answer the
that.
question?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The only thing I'll add is, if you're looking for a sales job, look for remote for sure.
Yes.
Um, or hybrid that is 3 days or less, because that kind of speaks to the productivity of the company and how they approach sales. And then also, I would say look for 30% travel or less, because 30 is really 50,
True.
and you want to be less than 30%. Like, because anything 50% is pretty much you're traveling all the time. So 30% or less, and ideally you can land on no travel or travel in your territory or in your field up to maybe 25, 30%. Those are my
Very,
those are my
very
two
true.
things.
Very, very true.
Yeah, that's it. So, I mean, everybody, like, comment, subscribe, of course. Let us know in the comments what's your minimum salary that you would require for a job. What do you think entry level people, what should a minimum salary be nowadays? Yeah, travel, remote work, all of that. Let us know what you think about sales. Let us know what you think about pay, commission structures. Put it in the comments.
Yes, sir. Sir,
All
thank
right.
y'all.
So next time. Peace.